what, Miss Sandro, now my beautiful, wonderful, sweet, kind little co-host that I love. We have a wonderful guest today, and I'm just thrilled to have Lee Garrison here with me today. Now, Lee, you're a life coach, author, and a wellness director.
That's correct.
You do all those things, plus you have written a book called Stop and Think. Now listen, if you don't think that's good advice, you're wrong, because that's some of the best advice we can give people to stop and think.
Yes, it is.
Also, we're going to talk about mental health, mental wellness.
That's right.
Because I tell you what, with all this stuff going on, people need some a little bit of help, Lee. So can you help us here today?
I think so.
All right,
yeah.
Can we start? It all started when I was 2. No.
Yeah. Let me just lay down on the couch here and put my feet up. It all began.
Oh, yeah.
No, but that's it's so true. Mental health is such a huge topic right now, and it needs to be. Because early on, I was in youth ministry and taught in high school. I kind of morphed into my own corporate wellness consulting business. But what's neat over the years is wellness, used to just mean a lot about doing a yoga pose and eating broccoli and doing some bicep curls. But it's morphed into an entire well-being attitude and life principles these days. And so you got your mental aspect, your spiritual aspect, your relational aspect, your financial aspect. There's so many vocationally, there's so many different things that affect our well-being. But in my opinion, and studies have shown, it all begins in the mind. So if we can begin to talk about mental health and mental health awareness, then I think we can get to the root of issues.
Right. Well, now, I've said this before. We're not going to just dwell on the issues that are going on in the world right now, but we know this is affecting us. And I do want to ask you a question. Do you think it's affected our children that haven't been able to go to school, their mental wellness?
That's right. I think so. And it's really been such an adjustment. And so my teaching now is more, and has been for the last few years, more webinars and showing up for companies for workshops and things like that. But I've still got a lot of friends who are current educators, and I have kids that are in school. So I have real conversations, with my kids at the house. And so the biggest thing, the toughest challenge has been the adjustment.
Yes.
And not just our own adjustment according to the new guidelines or standards, but once we try to get adjusted, here comes something else. So I think we have to have the attitude of training our brain to be flexible and to go with the flow. Is it's a fun thing to say, but it's harder to practice than it is to say.
Right.
But nonetheless, having the attitude, number one, that God's in control.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I think you hit the nail on the head with that, especially with how life got turned upside down so quickly.
Right.
And I mean, I think for the longest time, for the first 3-4 months, I don't know. It was more of just trying to go through that fog. It was like sink or swim. You just you're swimming. And then when it starts settling in, you really, at that point, that's when your emotional, your mental state steps it up to say, are we ever going to get out of this? How can we help our children? I have a young elementary student, and I remember that adjustment of being at school, and then you're sitting in your family, your dining room, and with a laptop in front of you, you know? And that adjustment was really hard. I know that things that she could do in 5 minutes took about 20 to 25 to 30, and I'm going, in my brain, I'm thinking, why is this happening? But one day she said, I'm trying to understand, am I going to be in the playground again? I was like, wow, she is thinking. She's thinking these big thoughts, but doesn't quite know how to express them. So I bring all of that up thinking, how can we help guide our children? I know that you've been in youth ministry. To help them cope with that in victory.
Right. Gosh, such great questions. And I think that it helps if we are aware of coping skills early on anyway. So it almost kind of goes back to my personal journey of being involved with mental health. And my kid's mom was clinically bipolar. And to just give you a quick snapshot to kind of answer your question.
Is this part of your testimony, Lee? Because I want to hear it.
It totally is. And so I married my college sweetheart in mid-90s. We went right into youth ministry, and then we got married in youth ministry. I had some kids early on, and it was great for a few years. And then the unfortunate thing was, it was during that time, she developed bipolar, and it was textbook case. Late 20s, a lot of things going, mortgages, stresses, and she never left postpartum with our third child. And so for the remaining few years, there was a lot of issues that we had to deal with, and adjustments, and having kids develop coping skills. And she and I both had to do a little bit more than maybe the average family would, because we had to wrap our heads around the illness, that it was a real thing, and that she was really swinging between two poles and adjusting, and our own personal coping skills. So over the years, and Mary was obviously a great person, loved her to death, and her life was an example of that bipolar is a real illness. And it's just like a cancer. So there are mental illnesses that have been had a lot of stigma to them in the past, and I think the culture at large has gotten more aware of that. It's chemical imbalances, hormonal imbalances. They're a real thing. It's just like a cancer.
Yeah, it is.
And so she lost her battle in 2017. And so, just
sorry.
Yeah, I mean, through support, through counseling, through therapy, through coping skills. And I can just kind of read through some coping skills and stuff too that they don't have to be huge, but just simple things that you can do that really help morph your brain. And I think when we retrain our brain and morph our brain to think healthier, and we get our own health, our own mental health in a healthy space, because chaos could even be around you, but you can still have a healthy space in your head and your heart, and that flows into actions, and then that trickle-down effect with your family.
So you had to have these coping skills yourself.
We sure did, yeah.
Yeah.
I would love
and
to.
your kids, possibly? Did you help your kids through this?
Yes.
All this transition you went
Definitely.
through?
Yep, sure did.
Well, read.
You read some of those.
Please
I would
do.
love that.
Please do.
No worries.
I mean, because I feel like there are people out there, they're needing help and don't know where to go to get it.
Right.
And this might help someone immensely, Lee.
Absolutely. And it can't be understated, the words think positive. And it sounds so trivial, but it's so true. Like when you first walk into my house, I have a big sign that says, every positive thought propels you in the right direction. And so think positive, because it could go good just as easy as it could go bad.
But isn't that biblical, too? We're to
is.
think on things that are good, lovely, pure, and a good report. We're supposed to think on...
Yeah, we are.
We are.
Supposed to have a better attitude, a positive attitude.
You got it.
Yeah.
And I've got some scriptures I can share, too, in just a second.
Okay, go ahead.
But, and one of the huge things that the coping skills that the kids, especially for kids, and even for kids today, is stay connected to people. Because even if you have to, socially distance, you can still stay connected. There are different ways you can stay connected. My youngest daughter, she'll be a senior in high school this coming up year, and she was totally bummed, about the fact that it was 100% virtual for her senior year, and missing football and cheerleading and stuff. But one simple thing that her and a group of friends do is they spend about 2 or 3 hours every day on FaceTime. They also do some healthy social media stuff, and get a little group me chat that they continually help support each other.
They're friends.
Talk to each other. They're
they
friends.
talk to their friends.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and another thing that I was telling myself as a parent, as the kids were getting older and going through changes, you got to watch for behaviors too. So, like for example, some of the behaviors to watch for if they slide into mental illness. And it's interesting, too, that mental illness is defined as a mental, emotional, or behavioral disorder. It seems like those three should be a separate category. But a emotional and a behavioral disorder begins in the mind, so it's classified under mental health. So I was looking for signs like isolation, if the grades were slipping, if their eating habits changed, if their mood swings, were happening. And so some of all the above went on in my house. So on top of us dealing with, their mom's bipolar condition, that like my oldest daughter, Megan, for example, and I would even love to have her back and talk about this stuff. She's 22. So to give you a very quick snapshot, At 16, she was going through a lot of mood swings too, and I think she was trying to help her mom so much too that she kind of adopted some of that
Behavior, yeah.
Yeah, behavioral stuff, and she began to self-harm and cut.
Oh.
And she said she couldn't quit, and this was when she was 16. So, we saw a therapist and got help. And get help, another thing, if we need it, get professional help.
Yes.
Right.
So fast forward to now, she's in school and her life call is to be a child psychologist.
Oh, praise God.
So, right?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So it's
Yes.
like through that pain, she developed her calling.
I love that, and I can
Oh,
see the
wow.
tears in your eyes
Right,
because as
yeah.
a dad,
I got this.
yeah, but
makes me
as a
wanna
dad,
cry.
that's something that you want to see that victory coming out. And Jesus says that there's generational curses out there, but we can break them in the name of
them,
Jesus.
yeah.
So I'm so happy she is doing that. I know when you talk about isolation, one of those targets that you need to look for, especially nowadays with how we do need to isolate. As a
Right.
parent myself, I'm like, how am I going to balance the virtual life that we are not created to be living in a virtual life, and the real, the human to human face to interaction, especially with a young daughter who it just opens a Pandora box if she's in virtual land. Does that, I mean, it's just
Totally.
very scary to see. So my question to you is, how do you balance that, and how do you isolate and go, okay, is this an am I seeing some symptoms here of isolation, or is she doing healthy isolating? Does that make sense? Is it bad isolating or healthy isolating?
Yeah, and I would say it depends on the age. 'Cause there's an age appropriateness thing where, especially, 5th grade, 6th grade, kind of middle schoolish, they begin doing things like closing the door.
Yeah.
Begin that separation thing.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's cool. But two things came to mind as you were talking. One is, this is something that I revisited and redid during the first kind of phase of COVID lockdown, was I locked myself in my prayer closet.
Praise
And
God.
I had not done that enough prior to. Just busy.
Yes.
Yeah.
But now that the good side of being forced into each other and being able to chill out is like, I need to get my personal private time with him again. Matthew 6:6.
Yes.
And so then the second thing is, with kiddos, I think just be aware of setting boundaries and figure out, you as a parent, know best, and your intuition about what boundaries need to happen. It could be a boundary of TV, a boundary of cell phone, and a schedule is always good too.
Yes.
The best we can develop some kind of regimented schedule. Because at
To
first,
set a tone, right? A normal, yeah.
that's right, yeah. And so I think the benefit for me in my house, and what I've had other conversations with parents about, is the readjustment, kind of regrouping, the connectedness too. And if there wasn't a good connection beforehand, that may.
I know, right?
But you can always revisit and help.
Yeah.
But I think just personally, as parents, diving into His Word more, keeping our head the best we can, meditate, find an activity, try to eat a little cleaner.
Yes. Exercise.
Exercise.
Yes.
That's a great coping skill.
Yes, and
Yeah.
you've jumped into that as well. I mean, with exercise, I mean, that releases all the, what is it, the
Endorphins.
Endorphins, thank you,
Yes.
which I probably need to do more of.
Me too.
Exercising.
Yeah, I really do. it was, I want to talk to you. We're going to have to take a break in a minute, and you might get to finish this, you might not, but y'all keep saying isolation.
Yeah.
But you're talking about people isolated in homes with other people. What about someone being isolated like my husband was for 24 days in a hospital room with no one
So
coming
tough.
in? Now, that affected him.
Sure.
I'm sure.
I can tell you, I have a friend also been in isolation for 13 weeks because well, it's not the virus, and neither was Roy's. Roy's was kidneys, but my other friend broke their back and their neck. Been in isolation 13 weeks. Nobody could come in. No one could come in and see my.
Wow.
It affected him. Now, how can I help him overcome this isolation thing, because it has affected my husband's thinking?
Yeah, right. I'm sure. I can't imagine, and I'm sure.
I mean, that affects people.
Right.
Lee, to be isolated. And it was because of COVID that I couldn't go in and see my husband.
Not that he had COVID.
No, he didn't have that. He had kidney
because of those
failure.
restrictions. Right?
Yeah, he had
Because of the
kidney failure. And for 24 days, he could not see me. No one could go see him. And I'm telling you, it worked on him.
You know,
It worked on him.
it does.
And I want to talk for you to help me with that
Sure.
when we come back from this break. So, hey, y'all stay with us because you want to know answers to your questions about mental illness. So stay with us here with Lee Garrison and my co-host Sandra. We'll be back in just a moment.
Yes.
Yes. Welcome back to Friends and Neighbors, and I'm just going to dive in this with Lee Garrison. He's helping us trying to understand mental problems, mental illness, and some of the things like isolation, because there are so many people, Lee, in hospitals now because of this COVID, in isolation, and how are they going to be, how can we help them when they come out like my husband?
Yeah.
So what can I do?
Well, I think that's a great question. And I think that, like almost any condition, you just have to be in the moment. And I think you have to kind of feel what's happening and feel that adjustment and the health of that individual. I think asking questions, kind of
Asking
monitoring.
questions.
Yeah.
Okay.
How you feeling? What can I do for you today? And I think encouraging people to talk. We have to get, I think, people, especially men, I can say that because I am one.
Yeah.
We need to talk.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys have seen that commercial from Michael Phelps for about Talkspace, when he said the only thing I've done for years is swim, and then the lane at the bottom of the pool doesn't talk back.
Oh.
So he's like, I just encourage men to talk.
Yeah.
And men in particular, we can get in our lane and we just stay there and we don't really say anything.
That's where my husband he doesn't want to talk much.
Yeah.
You also mentioned doing the small things. Talk about that.
Yeah.
Okay, so check this out. I did a webinar a while back, and the title was "Micro Changes Produce Macro Results." So the small things are the things that produce the big things. And so if it's a case where a person their memory needs to be refreshed, videos, photos, have a family memory night, where you just begin to talk about instances in the past that have happened, vacations, trips, special moments. Recall special moments in the past and small things, maybe their favorite meal. And if professional help too, like an evaluation, and there's nothing wrong at all with having a psychiatrist or a psychologist or behavioral therapist by your side. It's just like a personal trainer. Everyone needs training in their lives to help go to the next level.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of ways, but I think you just have to be in the moment and navigate the best course of action.
Okay.
Yeah, and you also do a lot of work in corporate America. How does corporate America look like nowadays, and how do you help with their mental health?
Everything's changed like everybody else.
I can't even imagine how it's changed.
Yeah, totally. It's obviously it's all virtual.
Yeah.
And so the angle, honestly, that I had asked to help with my clients and the corporations I'm working with, is to help from a mental health perspective. And really, what we're finding is people just need a few minutes to vent or someone to chat with. Email me. Let me give you a couple of quick tips on inspiration.
Wow.
Yeah, and also I enjoy talking, and I've been on HR benefits teams with different companies in the past too, but there's ways that leaders of a group, a church, organization can help implement challenges, programs, awareness, and even to make it fun too, try to help morph the group into more of a well-being minded culture, and it all helps.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, when you were here with me 10 or 12 years ago.
It was a minute ago.
You and I think Kimberly and Donna were up on the stage doing exercise.
Right? Were y'all kicking?
You were coaching us in exercise, but now you're not so much that. So what is the difference in what you did then? Because what's the difference in a life coach and a wellness coach?
Sure.
And a physical coach? What's the difference in all those?
That's a great question. It's really just morphed into a broader realm for well-being. And it's almost like there's the wellness wheel is kind of out there. It's like 7 key points, but again, like mentally, physically, emotionally, relationally, financially, vocationally, and even socially. And socially could mean giving back. And that's, come on, this is another key component to mental health and emotional health too, is to find a way to give back. You know, a community, a cause, you know, live life for a cause, not an applause.
Right,
that whole thing.
And you have to be careful. I know that there's a purpose. People want to feel a purpose out there, but we also have to be careful that we don't just jump on a wagon of whatever purpose is out there.
Yeah, sure.
One that will really edify the body of Christ and edify our well-being.
Right.
When you're talking about connectivity, though, and those simple things, it's really a blessing to be able to just transform our minds on those small things. Maybe even bringing a casserole or flowers and leaving it at a doorstep, or something like that that will make that person know you are not alone. Because I think the isolation, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but that isolation is when you feel so alone that nobody cares.
That's right.
Versus sending a text and saying, I'm thinking of you, I'm for you, or picking up the actual telephone and talking to somebody, right?
Yeah.
You know, what is that?
Well, okay, how does one become a mental coach?
Well, there's different levels.
And do you have to have certificates for this?
If you want to make a practice out of it, if you want to get money from it. But for me, my experience.
Yeah, I'd like to. That'd be nice.
Yeah. And so I'm not a clinical psychologist, but I've got my PhD in the School of Hard Knocks.
Amen, brother. I'm with you.
Yeah.
Hey, give me 5 on that one, son. Yeah, that'll work.
Yep. And hand sanitizer. No.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, we'll go wash our hands.
We
after.
will.
Yeah.
Well, there's different certifications too that you can get. Like I'm certified as a health coach, and then got degrees in psychology, and have been like a family counselor practitioner with churches. And so my point of view is to give some inspiration and insight. It's never really to tell somebody what to do or how to live their life. And I love what you just said a second ago about purpose. And I think that the purpose of life is for us to find purpose. And the meaning of life is for us to find some real meaning in this life. So what that means for you, it may not mean the same for me.
You, yeah.
And whatever that is, and that kind of gives ourselves back, you know, some joy and some meaning and those kind of things.
Yeah, if somebody wants to reach out to you, how can they reach? How can they?
What can they do, Lee?
How
Sure,
can
the
they
best
reach
way, my website is garrisonwellness.com, and I've got a well-being menu there. And so if someone wants to reach out and whatever you need from me, I think I can help.
Yeah.
Consulting, motivating messages, my books are on there, my link to my podcast is on there. And so all my services are listed on garrisonwellness.com.
Well, what's your favorite quote?
How much time do we have?
Spotlight.
Well, it's, the one that comes to mind, Aristotle, the first and greatest victory is over self. And it kind of goes back to, again, no one can create my own mental health except for me.
Right.
And so, can I just give you real quick a couple of scriptures?
Yes,
Hurry.
please.
What about life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react to it?
Did you read that somewhere?
Yes, I did. From you.
Stop and think. Stop and think. We're putting you on the spot. We really are. I'm sorry about that.
I got you, Lee.
That's okay. Yes, you did.
Yeah.
But that Aristotle quote's on page 2. So.
I'll look that one up.
Oh, gosh. I've got a newer rendition of this coming out because that's geared mainly toward young people.
Yeah.
But all of us, whatever age we are, that healthy practice of stopping and thinking
Yes.
kind of morphs.
We got 30 seconds.
Okay, cool. So Ephesians 6:12, make up your mind not to give up. Colossians 3:2, set your mind on things above. 2 Timothy 1:7, God has not given us a spirit of fear, but a spirit of love, power, and sound mind.
Yeah.
Philippians 4:8, you started earlier, think on things that are wholesome and lovely. And then Ephesians 5:26, washed by the cleansing of God's word.
Hey, we got to take a break. We'll be right back.
I'm back.
So stay with us.
Yes.
Okay, now Lee, we got 50 seconds. Tell me some foods to eat for this brain.
Oh, yes. Yeah, because you can eat nutrition-wise for a healthier brain. And think of healthier fats, avocados, fish, olive oil, a lot of Mediterranean diet, different kind of nuts, seeds, even dark chocolate.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, we're talking.
On that note, thank you so much for being here with us. It was really a tough subject to talk about, but you made it a delight to be able to share. And thank you for sharing your story as well. We really appreciate it.
All your information, I loved it.
Yes.
So good. And I want you to come back and we'll do some exercise.
Yes, please. That'd be great.
Up on the stage.
But Sherry, we got to go.
Yeah,
we'll see you next time.
We'll see you next time. And Lee, we'll hope to see him again. Bye-bye.